Western region. I mean, we have sunk money. It's like a bottomless pit, but nothing seems to ever come out of it.
Thank you very much, Fred. At least I have George who is here. He is an eyewitness of what has been happening. Let me say one thing.
Yes.
We have a very serious problem with governments, not only this government, but many of the governments that we have seen.
Yes.
One of the things that I have seen is when they are doing the budgeting, they budget even on the wastage. You know, when you look at the budget, there is a lot of waste even in terms of the budgeting.
Yes.
And this has actually brought a lot of inefficiency in terms of the government operations. And let me say, if you went to a private company, some of the things that we are fighting being done by the government, they would not happen in a private company.
They would not pass at all.
Yes, they will not pass at all.
Yes.
And some of even these leaders, they have their own farms. What they are doing for Kenya is not what they do in their own farms. So they don't care because the money doesn't belong to them. The money is actually from the taxpayers. And therefore, whatever they do, they don't care. But
so what you're saying is the practices that these leaders are implementing in the public companies, they would not even dream of implementing in their private companies.
I'm telling you.
Because they won't work.
They will not work, and they will not have that money to keep on pumping into something that is not really effective. And that is one of the things that we keep on asking. You know, it is being too selfish, and also it is also not being honest with ourselves. Because let me say, some of the government projects and some of the, you know, the things that the government is doing, I'm telling you, they can be very productive if only the government was serious about these kind of things. But the problem is there is nobody who is very serious. You know, let's say, for example, you come and you put like around 100 billion in a company, and it goes down, and you are not actually even asking some right questions. You know, if it is your own organizations, you would first of all ask, I gave you 100 million. 100 billion. What is it that you have done with these 100 billions? Do you kind of hear those kind of questions? It is actually this year, we are sinking 58 billion. Next year, we are sinking another 68 billion. And we are saying Kenya is a poor country.
Now, Gaira, are you saying of all the sons born of Kenyan women,
yes,
there is none who can be able to run these companies and turn them profitable?
You know, Fred, I give a quick example in Kakamega County.
Yes.
We have the Mumias factory, which was initially government, largely government owned, then it was privatized, and it ceased being a state corporation because of other investors that came in, including public. Remember, it was a public listed company. Right across Mumias is where you have the West Kenya Sugar Factory, which is on my ancestral land.
And it's a private company.
It's a private company.
Yes.
Two enterprises producing the same product, but that one of them is running efficiently, very profitable, and paying all the farmers on time. They now have a record of 7 days. You take your sugarcane on Monday, next week on Monday you take your check. But on the other hand, you have Mumias, which is also running almost a similar operation, but it can hardly pay its workers, it can't even pay its suppliers and all that. The problem is that it's not the location, it's not the region, it's not the farm produce that is there, because people have been farming there for a very long time. Remember, Mumias and Nzoia have a combined number of nuclear land, the amount of land that is considered as its nuclear, 24,500 for Nzoia and another 12,500 for Mumias. That is almost 40,000 acres of land. That alone is enough to run an efficient company, even before you take sugarcane from what you call the outgrowers, those that grow independently. But you ask yourself, why is it that Mumias is struggling and yet West Kenya Sugar Factory is very profitable?
And they're just not far from...
They're not far from each other, Fred, because that is my word. If you get to the gate of West Kenya Sugar and you say, Gaira, they will bring you to a home. So I know the factory very well. And maybe another one that you don't know, right next to it, just like maybe 5-10 kilometers on the other side of the constituency, we have the Butali Sugar Factory. Butali Sugar Factory, which actually the Indian guy who owns Butali is a cousin to the owners of West Kenya. So he used to work there in operations, and then when they fell out, he went, took a loan and set up a smaller mill, which now is almost 15, 20 years, because it was opened around that time. Our member of parliament, the late Senator Shitanda, around that time when he was a minister of state, he was able to facilitate the setup of the new mill. So we actually have in our constituency.
And it's also running profitably.
It is very profitably. Yeah. It pays its sugarcane on time.
What is the problem?
The problem is actually, and I keep on saying, it is the orientation, our culture, in terms of managing issues to do with government. We don't care about waste, and we are driven, actually I can say it, 100%, what drives us in terms of the government policies is corruption.
Yes.
And I can tell you, there is no reason as to why one company doing the same thing should be able to prosper and the government entity is actually going down. These guys, if you go to the government, if you want to see the guys who have gone to school, it's actually some of the government guys who are there. So the brains are there. But this issue that we keep on talking about, corruption, it is actually which is making the government the government not really to be able to be efficient. Because at the end of the day, the question that you keep on asking, Fred, is actually, and that is what I started by saying, if it is your own company, and you can see that like West Kenya, because it is their own company, they are driven by making profit. But you see, if the goals of the government is not the same as a private entity, you will find that they will never make any profit, because the profit goes to the pocket of some few. And that is actually a true thing. And I can tell you this is what is killing Kenya. Because the money can be generated, and the money is being generated, but instead of being generated for the good use, it is actually being generated. Few people, they come into a cartel, and they want to know, they know that the government, we can just do anything. We can get money from the government, we can buy choppers, we can buy vehicles, we can build flats, and that's why you are finding some of the guys, they are actually doing too well. When the Kenya economy is struggling. Why? It is because when you are waiting for the profit, it has actually gone to the pockets of people. And I would want them to tell me how one company producing sugar can be able to excel, and a government entity is actually not making anything. Something is not adding. Yes.
Exactly. And you know, the president did ask a very good question. He was saying the farmers have delivered their cane. The factory has processed and sold their cane. But the farmers have not been paid their money, and the salary, and the employees have not been paid their salary.
So where is the money now?
Because that's what used to happen. Remember Uchumi? You know, one of the questions when they were doing the inquiry on the collapse of the Uchumi at that time, we had just gone to sell our small shares there with another friend of mine called Misiga. Those days, we were being served by an agency called Suntra Investments. They were just on Nation Center. And so when we were asking why the collapse, why Uchumi collapsed, because it was very simple. We were saying, listen, so we supplied products to Uchumi. Our products were on the shelves. We were supposed to be paid within 45 or 90 days. We are back 90 days later. We don't have the money, and our products are not on the shelf. So where is the money?
Because the product was
it's not one of the suppliers in a very emotional account. It was, at least if I had found my products on the shelf, I'll go back with them home. But my products are not on the shelf. You understand? So problem very quickly, Fred, and Pastor David has captured it. We have in public service, we have a very bad culture in public service where we assume that we are the institution that we are running do not belong to us. So we have a problem with management, we have a problem with corruption and lack of accountability from those who are given responsibility to work on. Because that's a simple question. Such a question is enough to fire somebody. Because at least you should have my product. You should say we didn't
the
sell
product should be there.
At the very least,
I didn't sell them. Nobody took them.
Nobody took them.
They're here.
Yeah, so
but they're gone. There's no money.
I hope what this president said yesterday And he's been there, he's been around, I see around Bungoma in a couple of places. He didn't just go to Nzoia, he was even in a local village where we also have a farm there. You know, and he had all these wonderful promises. I just hope even he keeps a quarter of that. One is to just ensure the factory is back and is running. He came in with some fund, he said he'd come with a big check to pay some of the farmers whose payments were still outstanding. So hopefully he sorts that. And then he said they have a wage bill issue, which then they say is going to facilitate the payments of those wage bill into current status, because some of them haven't quite been paid for a long time. And then thirdly, the national dates that the company owed to the different agencies. You know, Nzoia is part of the 5 factories that are being sorted with the bill. Once the bill that is, I think, is in the Senate now, hopefully in the next month or two, they would go through it and the president is able to assent, so that the dates of all these 5 factories, including Nzoia, can then be sorted. That then will mean we'd have an institution that is free of national debt.
So it starts on a clean slate.
On a clean slate.
But the question is, they've not taken, have they taken care of the problem that we are not talking about? Because you can clean that plate clean, but if the water you're washing the plate with is dirty, it's still dirty. So
and that is actually the main thing. Actually, let me tell you, what we are seeing right now, it can only be effective if there is going to be changes. These changes are actually what is going to bring. And you see, we need to see the government actually make heads law. In the sense that they need, first of all, to sign, you know, what we call like the SLA. It is the agreement which is binding. You are being told, look here, you are starting from zero, where you have no debts, but you have the product, you have the staffs, you have all these resources. We don't want to hear a story. And there needs to be a follow-up. You know, maybe after 6 months, we need at least a program that is going to follow up and say, where are you? You know, these things, if they are not going to happen, it is going to be a musical chair. Next year.
Should they give it to the military? At least I saw KMC, a company that was making profit, of the profit that we're talking about was around 3 million to 6 million. When the military took over KMC, within a short time, they are doing profits of over 100 million.
And well-branded products.
Yes.
You see, Fred, and that's the thing, is because it still takes us back to what Pastor David is saying, accountability. Because when you have a factory now, assuming the 3 issues that are troubling Nzoia are actually sorted within the next 3 months, because including the national date, so the president should be able to assent to that bill probably in the next 3 months at most. So we are assuming from July we'd have a factory, because when you get into a new financial year, we'll have a factory that kicks off on a clean slate. Couple of things need to be worked on. One, they have to completely restructure the management of Nzoia Sugar Factory. Two, Nzoia has a nucleus, the land nucleus of about 24,000 acres.
24,000
acres. It's quite a big place. And I think it's almost one of the largest, even though I think Chemilil must be having a much bigger land in Kisumu, which it will be I'm keen to look at the political impact of, especially in Kisumu County, which has 3 sugar mills. You know, it has Chemilil, it has Muhoroni, and it has Miwani. Those used to be the rich folks of Kisumu town back then when those factories are working. And if this president is able to go through with the reforms, Kisumu would be back in business. You understand? And that would for sure have a political impact, because the first county in the Nyanza region that has been open to new ideas politically now has been Kisumu town. That's why when you go to Kisumu town, especially Kisumu town East and Kisumu town West, a very, very cosmopolitan constituency, with most of the, you know, the little existing industries that are there, a lot of Asians there running enterprises. They're the ones who keep that town alive. So for once, government will also have chipped into that circulation of money. You know, Fred, if you have an average of 5,000 employees per factory, then you have about 20,000 people who are earning. That is enough to keep an urban center busy, because 20,000 shillings, and then, I mean, so 20,000 workers who are earning, say, 20,000 to 30,000. It means every month you have about 600 million to $1 billion circulating within the town. It will for sure give this president a hand. And I think he's very committed, maybe not because he likes it, but for political reasons. He's really committed to see those factories come into play. And I have told you, Fred, they will work because that is one of his bait. He even told the people in Homa Bay that I'm bringing a ferry, you know, on the Rusinga Island. I'm bringing a ferry. If he delivers a ferry there, we are likely to have a turnaround in terms of the...
All this is political talk. And probably with 2027 in mind.
Yes.
And with that in mind, if you look at an article that was written, I think it was in the Star today, there's one of the major players within that region, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, who is now, I think, the third most powerful individual in the country.
Yeah, legally.
Yes, legally.
Yeah.
He has started his political machine for 2027. He's even bought a chopper and branded it his party.
Yes.
As in, you would have thought that this would have been the most powerful statements that would be coming from the political elite in that country, in that part of the country, but it's not. In terms of, you know, fighting for the revival of this the factories which can actually become the mainstay, or were the mainstay of the economies of that area. They've not spoken as they should.
Well, let me say, Fred, politics, there is a political leadership.
Yes.
And there is politics. You see, you can be a leader, but not a politician.
Yeah.
And what we are finding is that we are lacking leaders.
We have so many politicians.
We have so many political people, but in terms of leadership, it is a problem. Let me tell you right now, we are actually almost how many years? 2 years after.
Yeah.
You know, so we are having actually 3 years remaining for 2027.
Yeah.
And actually, to be very fair, only 2 years that you can be able to work.
Yeah.
The last year, there is nothing that you are going to do.
Yeah.
What is happening is that these guys got into the positions of leadership. So do they care about what is going to happen to you? Right now, I guess the answer is no. And that's why you are saying they are actually speeding up in terms of aligning things for themselves. And that's why you have said some of the things that we are seeing are just pure politics. And we have seen them come and go. Because many people actually, after the third year, they don't think about the electorate at all. They think about the strategies of the next
election.
Yes, that is what they do. And let me tell you, it is actually a disaster, and it is a very bad kind of a thing. And we have seen, and I keep on talking about one gentleman by the name Nelson Mandela. You remember the time he got out of prison. This man, he had the capacity actually to rule South Africa for a very long time.
Yes.
Because he was famous. People actually loved him. But you see, he got to a point, in fact, I think even for him to become a president, it is like people are actually forcing him to become the president. But that was not actually the main thing that he had in mind. His main thing was actually to liberate South Africa. And he didn't care who gets to be the president of South Africa.
As long as the objective of liberating South Africa.
Yes, that is the thing. And this is actually the political leader we are talking about. Today, he is gone. But every other person, when we are talking, who do we talk about?
We talk
it is actually
Mandela.
Yes. If you are asked about African leaders, you name one who has actually a legacy, a leader actually who drove the country in the right direction, you will not miss the name of Nelson Mandela. This is because he had a mission. There is something that he wanted to achieve. But let me say, the problem that we have manifestos in the parties. But do they really pursue what they say in the manifesto? Is there anything? And that's why you are finding today there is a lot of many issues, even in court.
Yes.
You are finding issues in court and issues with the government, because actually there is a lot of fight in all these kind of things. But what we are saying is, as long as you have the Kenyan at heart, there are so many things that you are going to do. And that's why we are saying we need accountability. You started by saying, we saw Kenya Meat Commission.
Yes.
It was actually not making decent money the way it is supposed to make. But the former president. Sometimes we keep on talking about bad things about some people, but I think that is one of the winning things.
That was a
it was one of the winning things, and he said that if you deliver cows within 2 days, 2 days or something like that, you should be paid. So the question that we are asking, where did that money come from?
Yes.
It is actually efficient operations. So what we are saying, in many government in any government company or something like that, you can make money as long as there is discipline, as long as people know what they are doing, as long as they get the politics out of the way. Because what happens is, you got like now to Nzoia, what will happen is that some people are looking at it at 2027 game.
There's a probably somebody political will be appointed. A political appointee.
You see, those are the problems that we are having.
So the politicians are actually could be the biggest problem that we are having, bedeviling this region.
Fred, could be you are trying to be nice to them. They are the problem that we have.
They are the problem.
Yeah, you are very nice to them. Anyway, very quickly, for Senator Wetangula, he was our senator, so by now he's speaker. So Speaker Wetangula, like any other politician who has been in politics for a very long time. Remember, he came into active politics in 1992, so he's done over 30 years of active politics. Definitely one of the most experienced, active politicians to date, because most of those ones who are there in the 80s, apart from say Orengo, there's hardly one that you can tell from those 70s and 80s time. So he's a very experienced guy. Nationally now he is on a very good platform because it's very visible as a Speaker of the National Assembly. Obviously he believes that he's in a position to totally be able to rise over and above the current position that he has now. And he wants to be president, but the question is when and how. You understand? Because as it stands now, he has to play second fiddle behind President William Ruto, because we are very sure, with the exception of God's plans, we are very sure that President William Ruto will be running in 2022 and he will be on the ballot. So there is no doubt that Moses Wetangula is not going for any presidency or any type of presidential ambitions at this particular time, but he might want to build his stature within the community. But that
become like the kingpin of the nation.
Exactly what Rigiji is struggling with in the central region, because you have many other players. When you look at the dynamics of the politics of the western region, the 4 counties and also by extension Trans Nzoia, because it's largely a Luya county, 5 counties that is, you realize that 4 of them are strong as in your counties, and then you only have Fort Kenya. And remember, Fort Kenya in Bungoma, when President William Ruto was competing with Raila Odinga, it's not like Raila got 0 votes. He was also right there with 200,000 votes. Just that the margin was unusual because I think President William Ruto beat Raila about 30 to 50,000 votes, which was largely driven by a bunch of people that are close supporters of Senator Wetangula. So he has a Herculean task to go through the 5 counties, which is almost 38 constituencies. Fred, we are talking about 2.3 million votes in the western region, and then you have what you call the diaspora vote. Nairobi alone has 516,000 registered voters who are Luyas. It's the 516,000 registered voters, which is literally right next to Kikuyu. That's why you see Luyas veto the Kikuyu vote, and then the others in ODM come to sort of beef up. That's why it becomes very hard to have a Kikuyu governor in this county because of scale. You might win in the constituencies where Kikuyus have numbers, or Isambu and Mbakasi North, and I think Dagoretti South, or something like that on the FAF, and the constituencies which are next to Kiambu. But when you come to these other areas, it's largely migrants, people who come from outside. So he has almost 5 million votes. In the 2027 election, Fred, the Luya basket will have at least 5 million votes to play. In 2027? In 2027. Those are 5 million votes. It's quite a big vote. And anybody that is able to marshal that in record time will, with no doubt, because...
Do you think the current position of both he and Musalia, I know he probably wants to make sure that Musalia just remains where he is as a flower girl, and he galvanizes the entire community behind him. Is he able to do that?
And that's where I was going to. I was telling you that I was just painting a picture of the scale, the number of votes that he has to work with. And at one time we were doing mapping of such a vote. We realized that we had to work with 50 constituencies, Pastor David. 38 constituencies in the western region itself. Then Nairobi has about 6 constituencies where there's a considerable number of Westerners where they can mobilize. And mark you know, the Luo vote is much bigger than even the Luo vote. A lot of these Luo politicians that have won seats in Nairobi is because they are backed by Luyas and Kisis. So their numbers go ahead. And because, like, good for them, they are much braver, they always present themselves.
Yes.
You understand? But we have about 6 constituencies. Yes. We have about 6 constituencies that enjoy significant number. That takes us to around 44. Then, you know, in Mombasa as well, Mombasa town, 3-4 constituencies, Jomvu, Nyali have literally become cosmopolitan, and now we are electing from there. So about 50 constituencies. So Senate Speaker Wetangula and any other person who wants to galvanize the Western region then has to create a network across 50 constituencies so that he's able to hit 5 million votes and at least 50 members of parliament, which is not a joke. That's why I think he's building his war chest so that he's able to maneuver and do that. But there's a challenge. When you're trying to mobilize, you know, even you, Dave, Fred, and even Pastor Dave, if I call you and tell you I have a plan,
yes,
your second question will be, for what?
Yes.
And how? You want to know.
Yes.
So we can say he's building a war chest, but the question is for what? Because clearly there's no, chances are very high that he's not going to be a candidate in the 2027 election.
True.
So what happens if the opposition, and I keep saying this, that the opposition, particularly ODM, which has 3 key bases, which is the Western region and the Nyanza region and of course the Coastal region. Those are almost 18 counties, you understand? So when you top up with the 6 counties in the Northeast and in Nairobi, you have at least 25 counties with almost 10 million votes, you understand? So if they are in the absence of Raila Odinga as a candidate in the 2027 election, the easiest bet would be, because that Luya basket of 5 million votes, to put a Luya candidate on the table and then back it up maybe with a coastal guy. That candidate, that ticket would have at least 10 million votes to play with. And so that is critical to Weta's ambition, because depending on whether or not who the opposition candidate runs, if it runs a Westerner, then this whole process is null and void for Wetangula. But if the opposition doesn't do that and they go for what they're opting to, which I'm against, you know, because I truly believe that, you know, they're really proposing Kalonzo Musyoka, but I believe he doesn't have the capacity to marshal the numbers and even the goodwill.
Do you even think Raila Odinga would step down for Kalonzo?
I don't want to think. The numbers can't allow anybody else to run. So David, because you can imagine what the ODM tried in Nairobi.
Yes.
They really thought they would be able to mount the full ODM base onto Igathe.
Yes.
But it didn't happen.
It can't.
Senator Sifuna got 716,000 votes.
Yes.
Igathe got 500,000. There was a gap of 200,000 people.
Yes.
So there were hardcore Azimio supporters, 200,000 of them, that walked the ballot, probably voted for Raila Odinga because Raila Odinga beat William Ruto in Nairobi, voted for Raila Odinga, voted for Pasari Sifuna, and then didn't vote for Igathe. You understand? Yes. So an attempt to front Kalonzo would mean, again, you take 30 counties where ODM can largely traverse on its own,
yes,
and then try to mount that base on somebody that has 3 counties. It's very difficult.
Well, I agree with George to some extent.
Yes.
The only thing that I know is that the voice of Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga is very powerful.
Yes.
Actually, if there is one person who is very powerful, is actually him. The thing is, you see the time Kibaki became the president.
Yes.
Kibaki didn't have a lot of, actually he was actually named very many words,
yes,
even in terms of where he comes from.
That's true.
He was being called General Kiboya and many other things.
Yes.
So there are so many things that were happening, but because of the voice, and that's why actually you cannot push away Raila Amolo Odinga in this politics, the Kenyan politics at all. You can move up and down, but I can tell you, if he does things at the right time.
Yeah, that's true.
In fact, if for example today he decides that I am building Kalonzo,
that would work.
That one, depending on the timing that he makes, I can tell you his voice is too strong.
Exactly.
Can I tell you, in Nairobi, in fact, the Igathe, for him to get the 500, you know, it was actually
late.
It was very late, and there was a lot of even many things, because the Azimio, like the ODM side, it is not that they did not want. Actually, they did not want Igathe, but the president himself, the former president, he is the one who was pushing that direction. So I actually find it that it was actually a good deed. It was a good deal, whereby he is getting 500. It shows how strong this man is
in a very short time.
In a very short short time. So what I am saying is, and this government of Kenya Kwanza, they need to be very careful. If today Raila actually settles, and he says, guys, I promised I will support this man, and I am going to support him. Let's support him. I am telling you, Kenya Kwanza would be a history. That is how powerful this man is. If there is one man who is liked and hated at the same time, it's actually the people who love Raila. For them to shift, it takes a lot of time.
And Fred, quickly, and Pastor David is right. Maybe that's what I didn't add. The candidate must be known early. If Raila Odinga and the Azimio coalition settle, because I agree, 80% of Azimio would vote for Kalonzo. I was looking at that margin. That's why I was giving the example of Nairobi. Very many ODM supporters turned out for Igade. Completely, considering that UDA pretty much had the entire Mount Kenya vote. Sakaja's 80% of the vote was the Mount Kenya vote. So I can tell you the 500,000 votes that Igade got, almost 80% were hardcore ODM supporters. But the timing was very late. So I agree with Pastor David. If it's done early, and we say Kalonzo Musyoka tosha, 3 years ahead of time, at least by the end of this year, the opposition must be sure of its candidate, so that then you have 30 months to go into 300 constituencies. Remember, after the IBC binary review, we are likely, because we have 315 sub-counties, so we are likely to have constituencies around the same number. So for you to cover 300 constituencies, Fred, I told you the other day here that even if me and you and Pastor David decide to go, and they give us the 300 million here, we could disappear here for 2 years. You understand? But 2 years is to cover 300 constituencies need such amount of time. So as Mio must, and Pastor David is right, if the decision is Kalonzo, it must be done now. So that those hardcore supporters of ODM, because it's a small margin, majority will vote. I've been to Kisumu and they say Kalonzo is our candidate. They've literally accepted that. But I'm now looking at the last bit of those ones that you are saying need to be convinced more. So the candidate must come up early, and luckily, for Kalonzo, it looks like a clean guy, easily sellable. Maybe would even get 2 million votes now in Muranga and Nyeri and all these areas. You understand?
It is actually
because if Raila Odinga could collect 1 million votes, Kalonzo could surely do double that amount.
And the crowd is shifting actually. I can tell you.
Because of the state of economy and the hardship people are going through.
It is not KK making. In fact, they are. It is actually unfortunate. And I keep on saying, if I was actually told that be a president for 2022, I would have said thank you. I don't want to take it because I could foresee it is going to be a challenge. Let me say one thing, and Fred, I know God will give us up to 2027 and beyond. I can tell you, watch Nairobi. Watch Nairobi. You know why I'm telling you that? And that's why Sakaja need to be very careful. It is because His Excellency, former president, former prime minister, he has actually indicated which direction that 2027 is going to take on Nairobi County. And I can tell you, this is the very person that the Azimio, that the ODM actually wanted to front. Last 2022. Yes, Team Wanyonyi. Can I tell you? It is going to be a day. Once now they settle on team. I'm telling you, Sakaja,
and
we'll have it love.
And I think by and large the opposition politicians within Nairobi have almost accepted Team Wanyonyi as a candidate. I really, especially in ODM, I really doubt that somebody will come up. Maybe those who want to, they want to shake up things, decide to run so that you can settle on something. They tell you we can make you a deputy governor and things like that. But Team Wanyonyi is a sure bet for Nairobi because if you check constituency, remember my voter in Westlands constituency. I voted at Hospital Hill, and I voted there for 20 years, since 2005. So that area you'd find that Team Wanyonyi is one of those MPs that has been getting a crossover vote. Lower Kabete and those sides of Kikuyu town pretty much overlapping to Westlands constituency. So we have voters there who are traditional voters of UDA, but when it came to the parliamentary seat, they voted for Team Wanyonyi. Very sellable across board. And I think it was the same challenge that Igade had, is what Sakaja benefited from, because there are hardcore supporters in those areas of Dagoretti North and Westlands, Kangemi, who even if you go there at 56 junction that gets to Congo,
yes.
if you really want to hear the heartbeat of the politics of that region, just pass by there and stop for 5 minutes. Yes. You will hear people's opinion. They will tell you, Sakaja, we voted for him because alikuwa ni wetu, but we are not part of this party. So Pastor David is right, and I think the problem has been with Azimio and any other opposition has been quick making of decisions.
Correct.
And investing the amount of time that can go for Gather to even be able to gather 500,000 votes for that short time. You know, he came right at the nomination.
Yes.
Had he been there a year before and gone around the county, the few people that actually gotten, Makiu people don't know. Sifuna got the 3rd highest vote in the country.
Yes.
After the president and Raila Odinga. It's Sifuna.
Yes.
And then the vote comes from across communities. If there's a young politician, and Fred, I'm not saying that because he comes from Bungoma County. Just look at the numbers and the statistics in Nairobi. He's the only candidate that you could say Kambas voted for him, Louis has voted for him, Kikuyus that was supporting Jubilee voted for him. So he sits at a very prime position. He just needs to, he has a chance of accelerating into a national leader if he plays his cards very well.
That is true.
Yeah.
I also saw, now switching the gear a little bit, I saw religious leaders yesterday, and they came out. I mean, these are, you know, religious leaders from all religions in Kenya, coming out, speaking out against the LGBTQ agenda in this country.
Yes.
And they're saying they're actually presenting a petition, I think, in Parliament. The one to support, is it Kaluma? MP Kaluma's bill in Parliament, so that some of these movements that are popping their ugly heads up can actually be stopped. We too late, or this is the move in the right direction? Let me start with you, Pastor David.
Well, I am very happy and hopeful, at least when I see some of the things that are happening. In fact, for Kaluma, I saw him and I was very happy. You know, sometimes you can want to be popular, but he has chosen not to be popular because there are quite a number of things that are happening in this country. And for this time, I find also the religious leaders actually coming out strong, in the sense saying that this thing cannot fly and it is not going to happen in this country. I don't think we are late. I think they have actually been on this thing for quite some time, and it is actually something very commendable. And I would feel that this is actually the stance that all the religious leaders, they need to take. Because some of these things, they are westernized kind of a thing. Why do you bring these kind of things in this country? In fact, if you go to the Bible, in the book of Romans, chapter number 1, verse number 26 to 28, it talks about, though people knew me as God, they did not treat me as God. And they did things which were not actually, you know, they are inhuman. In the sense that women started sleeping with women, men started sleeping with men. So it is something which is not human. It is something which is even the Bible is against. And I find this is actually the start that we need to do. We may not really look famous because you see, in the first place, why would even the government actually allow this kind of culture to get even into our country? Because let me tell you, Africa is actually endowed with very great culture. Some of them are good. And there are some things we don't really need to borrow from the Western side. West, you see, in the sense that there are some things already, Africans, they believe in God. You find some of these guys, they don't even believe in God. They think that where they are is because of their own making. But us, in fact, God, that's why they keep on saying that 80%. I don't know whether, I don't want to verify the numbers. It is whether it is not 80% or anything, but it is a good starting point. Where you hear that Kenyans are 80% religious, it is a good stance. It is actually now how you work out your faith and your salvation or anything like that. But what we are saying is that we know God, and there are some things which is a no.
It's a complete no.
It is a complete no.
We're not negotiating.
That is a complete no. Because let me tell you, we were told another time, and I will give a very bad example here. All of us here are men. If you lock us here
Yes.
for like around 9 months, what will we produce? we are not going out.
Yes.
We are just within this need. The only thing that we will produce is a heap of
Oh, yeah.
see, tunakula. Tunakula. So what you'll find there, the resorts, is actually going, you'll find tumekula, na tumedeposit something there. So you'll only find a mountain of what we take to the toilet.
Yes.
But you will not find a baby.
Yes.
But if actually you had women and men, you find that there will actually going to be a resort, that there will be some babies who are going to be produced, and that's what happens. But you cannot tell us that you are going to marry, you are going to have a man-to-man. There is nothing
It's
they can
ridiculous.
produce.
It's
It is ridiculous.
completely ungodly. It's completely unnatural.
That is the thing.
Yes.
And that is why we are saying there are some things, and I'm happy that we can hear this thing. And when it is getting to the parliament, actually, it is something which is positive. There are some things which happen, and there is not a lot of that big force. But right now, when it is gets even to the floor of the house, it is something positive. But I can tell you, I am for the religious leaders. Let us push this thing. It is a no. It cannot happen in Kenya.
Yes.
And I can tell you, I will do whatever it takes.
Yes.
And I know you will do whatever
Yes.
it takes. And I George will do whatever it takes
And you know,
to
Fred,
make sure that it doesn't fry.
I'm just very quickly, I'm just happy that actually this debate is now put in the mainstream.
Yes.
And we need to make it formal, legal, and our position in as far as sexuality is concerned as a country must be clear to anybody that lands in this country. He must know if you have characters and behavior that are un-Kenyan, you deposit it before you exit.
Yes.
It's part of our vetting scheme. We need to add on our, when you are at immigration and now you are signing in, you indicate your sexuality so that we know whether we need you or not.
Yes.
I'm happy that Senator Kaluma, MP Kalunga is able to bring that forth because then it will be clear and official so that this becomes the position of the people of Kenya. And as far as that issue is concerned, because the business of when you're not clear, Fred, even as a leader you fail. You'd rather, that's why you see even terrible organizations like Al-Shabaab, they believe in something.
Yes.
That's why they are followers.
And they're very clear.
Yeah, that's why they are
believe.
followers. You could see somebody doing like what happened at Westgate. Somebody comes in and does a very outrageous thing, comes in broad daylight, walks in with a bullet, is killing people in China. And he says he's doing it because of what he believes. It's terrible in as far as humanity is concerned, but when you look at the structure of leadership, that's what they believe in. So as a leader, then you have to have a very clear position on an issue. So when the country goes into a situation where we can actually legislate and make it formal that this is none of our business, and that remains the position of the 50 million of Kenyans, and the way Museveni said in Uganda, those who think otherwise can leave us.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in fact, I would love to see the West, because the West is the one that's pushing this agenda so much, pumping a lot of money into the country using certain organizations that I'm not going to name. I would love to see them try and do that in a place like Saudi Arabia.
They can't even dare it because their positions are clear.
And that is exactly what George is talking about. You must be known for something. If, Fred, you are known for something, people will fear you because they will say, this guy, don't approach on him, he can kill you. Because we must be adamant. There are some values we cannot take, and there are values we cannot throw away. And that's why you are saying about Saudi Arabia, they go with that kind of nonsense in quotes. Men, they will be on the next flight. Actually,
some of them hanged.
Yeah, you see, that is, if you make it, you will be on flight.
Yes.
If you make it, you don't make it, you will be a past tense. And that's what we are saying. We don't need these kind of monies. There are some things that we value as a country. And these things, we must pursue them.
And these are not human rights.
No.
It's not a question.
Actually, it is not a human right. It is what we call evil. They are evil in their minds. There is nothing that is good about what they are trying to do.
And Fred, when you look at the Marriage Act, it's very clear what constitutes a marriage. Legally. It's not even Gaira's opinion. That's why I'm saying I'm happy that we now make it mainstream and official that we legislate it and make official that this is the position of the country and the people of Kenya, so that those who don't agree with us are free to leave us, so that we can remain a Christian state, because Kenya is a Christian state.
Correct.
And its positions are derived from what the Christian teachings, and the same is captured in the constitution, and now a legal act if that proceeds to completion with the Honorable Kaluma. I think sometimes, I guess, because of the governance and the issue of politics, geopolitics, we find ourselves entangled into that debate, even though it's a debate that is not beneficial to us.
Yes.
I like what President Uhuru Kenyatta, when he was being interviewed with Christiana Amanpour, and she tried to bring such a debate, he said that is not our priority now.
Correct.
We have other things that we need to focus on. Our people need to eat, be in good homes, have jobs, then we can. But you see, the position of can should not even be there, because Kenya is a Christian state.
Yes.
So let's see how it goes. I support that. I hope we make it formal. And when the bill goes through and the president is now supposed to sign, I wish that it were public.
Yes.
We do it at Uhuru Gardens in front of everybody. The president has sent.
So that
we invite all the 100 ambassadors to clap for us, to clap for us as the president signs that into law, and we let them know that as a Christian state, this is our position. That question should not be asked again.
Yes.
Correct.
Just as we bring the curtains down on this, somebody has gone to is about to initiate a petition to see off the Chief Justice.
Yes.
Yes. Your thoughts.
Well, let me say that for the learned friends, one, it was a disappointment. The fact that for them they follow the constitution.
Yes.
But when they are following the constitution, sometimes there is a challenge in terms of the leaders. We said the other time, the spectators, they play the ball more than the people, better than the people who are in the field. So there are some few things that the CJ could be seeing that other people who are out are not seeing. And therefore, guided by that kind of her wisdom, she actually had to make a decision, which I think it didn't sit very well with quite a number of people. Actually, I have seen her ICJ. They want her out, actually. But the thing is, sometimes some of their opinions, they are there, and they have the right to do what they have to do. But I think it may not be the way we look at it from the service. From the service, it may look very obvious. But I can tell you, she might be guided by some few wisdom. You remember during the time of former President Uhuru, it was very difficult even to do anything through the court. And I think that is one of the areas she doesn't want to go to, because if we don't have the judicial system in this country, and it is not trusted by people, then Kenya is going to be a banana republic. And I think there are some few things that are guiding her. But what I am saying is, let them fight, as long as they don't fight in the street.
Let's just do it legally.
Let's do that. We will also have another interpretation about the action. So I think it is a good thing. Let everybody who is not comfortable do that. But I think also she must be having a bit of some few things which are driving her to what she did. But everyone has their own light.
Fred, very quickly, I think it's unavoidable, because the judiciary is one of the three pillars of government. Because you have the executive, the legislation, and the judiciary. So it's unavoidable that these institutions have to engage with each other. And so the judiciary does need a hand of government, and the government also needs a hand of judiciary. Remember, this judiciary can send a president home. It can send a president home. So it's a very critical institution. I think what she needs to work on is how to manage the optics of it. Because then when you look at it, especially in a country where you have a president that is continuously displaying a character of an overbearing leader that wants to sort of trample on even court decision, you need then to have a very strong judiciary, so that then you're able to check this president and check him. So with a picture like that one, then you don't want to have a judiciary that is constantly smiling to such a president. So I think the Lady Justice Martha Koome, she's very right that these institutions have to engage with each other, but I guess she has to manage the optics. Probably a neutral ground would have looked much better, as opposed to going to State House, and then, because then you see, considering that the president was on a verbal attack a couple of weeks ago, it looked like you're giving in to the pressures of the president. So she needs just probably to work on the optics of it, but the institutions of government have to work together, because they're serving the same people, and it's not an exception with the judiciary.
Beautifully said. And with that, we got to bring down the curtains on the show. Thank you very much for participating in the same. Remember, and mostly so on this LGBTQ issue, we as a people know where we came from. We know who we are, and we know where we are going. For countries that are trying to push an institution, organizations that some of which we know are trying to push this agenda into this country, we will not sit back and just watch. We will do what it takes to stop you in your tracks, because we are talking about generations to come. We don't want our generations to be destroyed. We have very good examples in Sodom and Gomorrah, and we know where they ended up. We are not going to allow you to drive us on that course. And so we support the religious leaders that are pushing this, and we pray for strength that you can keep on pushing this until it becomes a piece of law in this country. So, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we stand with all the religious leaders pushing this. Let's continue. If you need our support, talk to us. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you.